Hello, my tiered tomatoes. It's your boy Zionic Blader, and in this video, we are going to be doing a tier list for the BakuCores. Now, every Bakugan has a core lineup. So, for example, Pyroserpentes, it has a core lineup of Fire Fist and Green Fist. And now, depending on the core lineup, it also makes a big factor on how good the Bakugan is, because some core lineups are really bad, and some core lineups are really good. So, to determine which core lineups are bad and good, we are going to do a tier list. So, I have pretty much all the combinations of core lineups that there are. I mean, you can probably just swap, like, instead of like a magic shield and Helix, it's a Helix and magic shield. It's the exact same thing, it doesn't really matter. But, yep, these are pretty much all of the cores that are available. So, the first core we have is the Magic Shield and Helix core. Now, the Magic Shield is the best B power boosting core in the game. Like, there is no competition to it. Its maximum is 650 B power for your regular Bakugan, or 800 B power for your fusion Bakugan. So there's really not anything that can mess with it. So if we go down this list that's in the Bakugan Wiki, it shows us the different magic shields there are. The best one is obviously the 650, but you have 600, 550, 500. And really, you can just ignore these lower boosting ones because 650 is your guy. But there's also your trap ones too. So you got negative 400 B power, negative 500 B power. So if you have a Bakugan team that does not really want to use a magic shield, but for some reason you have a magic shield in your core lineup, here you go. You can use the minus 500, put it near your opponent's side of the field, or you can put it in an area that does not seem like it's a trap, and then your opponent will try to grab it using like a Geogan, or try to steal it using a Bakugan's effect. So, yeah, the magic shields are pretty much awesome, because you got the 500, the 650, the 800, you got the minus 500. However, their only downside is that they don't do any boost for damage. But I mean, when you're giving the highest B power in the game, it's not really, you don't have to really worry about damage, because you can use a different core for that. Now, the second core is the Helix core. Now, the Helix cores are great because they give high boost in B power and they give high boost in damage. However, their negatives is that if you want to focus on B power, you're going to be taking a nerf in damage. If you want to focus on damage, you're going to be taking a nerf on B power. So, let's scroll into this list and look at the Helix cores that they have. So, here we go. So the best B power boosting Helix core is the plus 600 B power core, but at the same time, you're losing 3 damage, which is actually quite a lot, especially for B power focused Bakugan, because a lot of B power focused Bakugan, they have high B powers, but at the same time, they have low damage ratings as well. So many instances, you'll get that plus 600 boost, but a lot of Bakugan will end up having 0 damage or 1 damage, which is barely anything. So that's the big negative over there. Luckily, if you're going for the damage route, you don't really have to worry too much. It's a plus, you get a plus 5. I mean, the boost for the reduction for the B power is 200, like negative 200 for the best one. But I mean, negative 200 versus minus 3, like, it's not real, like, the negative 200 is less of an impact, because usually Bakugan that are damage focused, you don't really have to worry about B power. Because usually when you're focusing on damage, you're doing a highest damage wins play with a Might of Syndius or a Mac. So those instances, the actual damage is the indicator on who's going to win. So you don't really have to worry about that. However, that being said, it's not the best B power boosting, it's not the best damage boosting, because we have Magic Shield for the best B power boosting. However, it does have a good middling boosting core, which is the plus 300 B power, or the plus 3 damage. However, not many people actually use this. I mean, it's interesting, but I mean, you'd rather go for all or nothing, when it comes to the Helix cores. The Helix cores, unfortunately, they don't really have any good fusion boosting cores. They have a couple, like they have the 500 B power and +2 damage, but I mean, when the best B power boosting best B power core for Helix is a non-fusion, it kind of sucks for fusion Bakugan that have Helix cores, because, you know, I'd hope for something more like a +700 B power, -3 damage or something, you know. But unfortunately, they do not have any fusion cores that surpass the +600 boost or the +5 damage boost that they usually get. They do have some, I believe they have some gear reduction cores as well. Yeah, they do have some gear reduction cores as well. You know, the +400 B power, -1 damage, and you reduce the gear cost by 1. But with a lot of these gear reduction cores, they're really not worth using, because first of all, the stat increases that they do are not as good as compared to the normal stat increases. And second of all, for decks to really make use of these gear reductions, they really want to have a lot of gear cards in their deck, because if you're not using a lot of gear cards, then you're kind of not, like, if you roll onto a gear reduction core and you don't have a gear card in your hand, it's kind of a waste. So you really have to be focused on gears for your team to really make special use of these cores. And for those teams that do have a big emphasis on gear cards, they usually use Bakugan like Chaos Feral, which will like make things reduce in cost already, and you can just spam that effect until they're free. So yeah, they're very situational. You're not going to want to be using them. You're mainly going to be focusing on the +600 -3 or the -200 +5. So I'm going to say it's not an S tier because it's not the best, but I still think these are very, very great. This is a very, very great core lineup. It's held back slightly by Helix core, because Helix cores are not very good for Fusion Bakugan. Their reductions can sometimes be detrimental to the Bakugan, but they also give the second highest boost in damage and B power. So a gear core lineup of Magic Shield and Helix, I'm going to give that an A. So, all right, next up we have Green Fist and Shield Core. Now, Green Fists are known for their mid boosts in damage and their low boost in B power, while the Shield Cores are known for their mid boost in B power and their low boost in damage. Now, the thing about Green Fists and Shield Core is that really they're not very good. There are much better cores out there, and really the only Bakugan that can make use of these cores are Bakugan that have effects that give them additional boosts as well. So your Darkest Nilius from Bakugan Evolutions, that thing, when it opens on a Green Fist, or when it's on a Green Fist, it'll gain an additional 1000 B power. That is why that Bakugan is so good. It's not because it comes with a Green Fist, it's because its effect allows it to be good on a Green Fist. And in those situations, those Bakugan tend to have 2 Green Fists or 2 Shield Cores. So when you're at 1 Green Fist and 1 Shield Core, you're really kind of splitting it. You know, because usually Bakugan are good at one or the other. So having 2 of them usually means that the Bakugan will only have 1 core that they can actually roll on, while the other one goes to waste. And if the other one going to waste is a Shield Core or a Green Fist, then no other Bakugan in your team will really want to make use of it. Like, for example, for this Magic Shield and Helix Core, even though your main Bakugan is probably going to want to roll onto the Magic Shield, because there's a Helix core that's left over, another one of your Bakugan can actually make use of it, and because the Helix core gives a high boost in B power or damage, it's actually beneficial. In the case of the Green Fist and Shield Core, this leftover Shield Core or this leftover Green Fist is not really going to be wanted to use by any other of your Bakugan. That being said, they do have some interesting effects, interesting boosts when it comes to Fusion Bakugan. Now, while the Green Fist and the Shield Core are normally not very good for your generic Bakugan, the Fusion Bakugan, Force Shield, and Green Fist, they actually get some pretty substantial boosts. Now, the Shield Core really is 500 beat power, which is, it's fine. It's a bit over, it's over 400, that's for sure. But the Green Fist is actually a bit better because even though the boost is by 5, since the most boost that a core can give in damage is 6, being at 5 is actually, not bad at all. I mean, heck, the Helix core, we give a lot of praise to the Helix core, and the most it can boost damage is by 5. So a Green Fist giving 5 damage is actually really good. So Fusion Bakugan actually get the good part of this of the Green Fist. Now the Shield cores, they have 400 boosting, but it's faction specific. Green Fist have their similar thing. They can give 3 damage, which is the most damage that a Green Fist usually can give. But you also get 100 B power on top of that. So that's a nice bonus. But usually when you're using Green Fist and for damage, you really just want the 3 damage. It doesn't really matter about all these extras because they usually don't play a part in anything. Now the Green Fist and the Shield cores also have some gear reduction stuff. The Green Fist has a +2 damage, -2 gear reduction, or the best one is probably the +3 damage and the -1 gear reduction, because the +3 damage is pretty much the peak for damage in Green Fist, and then you get that extra -1. That's pretty good. The Shield Core has something. Unfortunately, the Shield Core does not have the same thing. If it had a 400 boost and a gear reduction, that would actually be really good. Unfortunately, it's only 300 B power boost, and then you get 1 reduction. However, for Aurelis Bakugan that are Shield Core dominant, the 300 is the most they can get. Because unfortunately, Shield Cores are kind of racist because they'll give you 400 B power boosts for Aquas, Chaos, Darkus, Pyrus, Aquas, Ventus, but they will not give you a 400 boost for Aurelis. And now the reasoning for that is because in the first early part of Generation 2, in the Battle Planet format, Aurelis Bakugan had very high stats. However, by Armored Alliance, Aurelis Bakugan actually started to get your regular Bakugan, your Aquas, your Ventus, your Pyro, all those other factions started to match up to Aurelis, and Aurelis kind of just had the same stats, but with less cards in their card pool and with worse cores on top of that. So that was a big downfall for them. However, I'm rambling too much. The Green Fist and the Shield Core. This is a pretty poor core lineup, and it being one Shield Core, 1 Green Fist, that's a big detriment as well. So I'm going to put that as the worst core lineup you can get. Because usually the Bakugan that really make use of the Shield Core or the Green Fist, they would prefer to have 2 of them because it gives them more opportunity to really land on that. So that is a big shame. So next up is the Green Fist and Fire Fist. We just talked about Green Fist a lot. They give mid boosts in B power. They give mid boost in damage. However, the Fire Fist gives the most damage out of all of the cores. So having a mid boost and a high boost, that's pretty good. You're mainly going to be wanting to roll onto the Fire Fist, and then this Green Fist kind of goes onto Waste. However, there are a few Bakugan that will have effects that'll let them get better. There are a few Bakugan that actually can make use of both of these cores. I believe it's Chaos Neo Dragonoid from Evolutions and Pyrus Cycloid from Legends. It'll have an effect that allows it to roll onto a Green Fist, and then when it opens on a Green Fist, it can add an additional core from the field onto it. And so you'll usually be taking your Fire Fist on top of that. So this is actually not a bad core lineup. It's pretty decent. The Green Fist is obviously the weaker part of it. However, the Fire Fist is really great. So I'm going to actually put this in B tier. It's in the middle of all this. It's not the worst, it's not the best, but if you have this core and your Bakugan can make use of it, it's a pretty good core lineup. Next up is Shield and Fire Fist. Very similar to Green Fist and Fire Fist. However, now you kind of have a split on, on the stat boost, because the Shield Core gives mid boost in B power, while the Fire Fist gives high boost in damage. So, you're going to want, usually Bakugan focus on damage or B power, not both of them at the same time. So, the Shield Core is most likely going to be going to waste. So, because of that, I'm actually going to put this in C. Even though the fire, actually, you know what? I'm gonna put this on the lower part, the end part of B, because the Fire Fist is still a magnificent core to have. So, yeah, if I had a Bakugan that had like maybe 6, 7, 8 damage, and then I had a Fire Fist, that'd be great because it'd be over 10, and 10 is the minimum we want for a highest damage wins play. But anyways, next up we have 2 Shield Cores. Now, I've talked a lot about Shield Cores already. Mid boost in B power, low boost in damage. They can do a gear reduction up to 2. But this core lineup is really dependent on the Bakugan's effect. And luckily, there is Bakugan that make use of the Shield Cores. I think it was Ventus Pegatrix from Bakugan Evolutions, and then the not Geoforge, it was the Neo or something. It was a Darkus Nilius that makes use of these Shield Cores. Because of that, I will give it a C tier. It's really dependent on the Bakugan that make use of this. Next up is the Magic Shield and Shield Core. Honestly, I'm going to put this in the same range as the Fire Fist and Green Fist. It's, a high boost in B power and a mid boost in B power. You're pretty much going to be wanting to roll onto the Magic Shield, and you're usually ignoring the Shield Core. I think you can probably use the Shield Core as like a gear reduction core if you really wanted to. Some Fusion Bakugan are pretty decent with the plus 500. But most of the time, you're not really going to care about the Shield Core. The Shield Core can give 1 damage. Like, that's pathetic, really. Like, 1 damage. Like, it's pretty funny. There's a lot of Bakugan that, like a lot of Bakugan that are like, there's a lot of Bakugan that will have like 9 damage, and then they have like 2 Shield Cores, or they'll have a Shield Core, and that Shield Core is what puts them to 10 for the 10 damage minimum. Really, you're just gonna Fire Fist all the way, Magic Shield all the way. You just ignore the Shield Cores when it comes to those combinations. Now, next up, we have 2 Fire Fists. Now, this is an absolutely amazing core lineup. Like, you have 2 cores that give you the best damage boost in the entire game. If you're a Fusion Bakugan, you get 8 damage, and that's absolutely amazing. Damage wins Bakugan. Definitely want this core lineup, and there's even some B power focused Bakugan, especially during the Battle Planet era, that reached very high numbers because they had effects on the Fire Fist. Like, not only would they reach some decent B power numbers, they'll also reach some decent damage numbers, because the Fire Fist can also boost 250 B power and 3 damage, which is a pretty good split. Pretty solid. Then you have the 150 plus 4, but really the king of all cores is the plus 6 damage. It also has some trap cores like -4, -5, but most of the time, the plus 6. That plus 6 is the king. Yeah. Now, S tier for sure. Next up is Magic Shield and Green Fist. This is pretty much the same as Fire Fist, not Fire Fist, as Shield Core and Magic Shield. Oh no, sorry. This is pretty much the same as Shield and Fire Fist. You got 2 different kind of cores. They focus on different things, so most of the time you're either using the green fist because the Bakugan makes use of the green fist, and then the magic shield is, given away, or you're using the magic shield and the green fist is kind of just there getting wasted. So, yeah, I'll put that in the same range as the bottom end of the B tier. Now, next up, we have Magic Shield and Fire Fist, two of the best cores for the different stats, and they are combined, so you can either go for that plus 650 B power or that plus 6 damage. It is a beautiful core mixture, and I'm going to put that in S tier. Now, it's going to be underneath the Fire Fist because having two different cores just means that you have less cores to roll onto, so you kind of lower your chances a bit, but still, this is still a very amazing core lineup. If your Bakugan has this is great, because even if you only use one core, the other one can be given away to a Bakugan that can make better use of it. So if you have a high B power Bakugan, you just roll onto the Magic Shield, and that Fire Fist can go away to a Bakugan that can use the damage boost. But yeah, S tier for sure. Now next is the Helix cores. Helix cores are great. Having two of them is even greater because you can have one focus on B power, you can have one focus on damage, you can have them both focus on the same thing. So yeah, really they have the same downsides as any Helix cores. That the negatives that they have also come with a positive. So you get that big boost in damage, but you'll also get a big boost in B power. You get that big boost in B power, you get a big reduction in... you'll get a big reduction in the other stats. So, yeah, I'm going to put this at the top of A tier because 2 is great to have. And there's quite a few Bakugan back in the day that really made use of the Helix core. Nowadays, Bakugan don't really make use of the Helix core, at least in the Evolutions and Legends format. But back in like Armored Alliance and Battle Planet, the Helix cores were really powerful. Now, next up we have Helix core and Fire Fist. I'm going to put this right beside Magic Shield and Helix because it's pretty much the same thing. You have the Helix core and you have the Fire Fist. A lot of cool Bakugan. I actually will put this over Magic Shield and Helix just for aesthetic reasons. For some reason, I feel like the Helix beside the Fire Fist is really cool. And that's literally just it because, yeah, I think there's some great Bakugan, mainly focus and damage, that have this core lineup, like Darkest Rairazu, I believe, which is which was the best damage boosting damage focused Bakugan in the entire game for quite a bit, and that came out during Armored Alliance, so that Bakugan retained its spot at number 1 for quite a while until at least Evolutions, when Evolutions introduced those Bakugan that can go up to 20 damage in base form. But anyways, next up is Helix core and Shield. Now this is not as good because you have the downsides of the Helix core, but then you also have, like, the Shield core with you as well. So it's really not that good to have. I'm not going to put this. I'm going to put that towards the bottom of B. Yeah, the Helix core and the Shield and the Helix core and the Green Fist. The Helix cores are great, yeah, but then you have this core over here that really pulls it down. Because the Helix core is not as good as the Magic Shield. It's not as good as the Fire Fist. But it's really brought down when it has like a Green Fist or a Shield core with it. Because it's just, yeah, the Green Fist and the Shield cores are really not that good. And the Helix core has some disadvantages that can hold it back, depending on the Bakugan as well. And now, next up we have the 2 Green Fists. Pretty much the same as the Shield core. I'm going to put it over the Shield core, actually. The Bakugan that use the Green Fist, the Bakugan that have to use these Shield cores, it's really dependent on their effects. What makes a Bakugan with Green Fist good is their effect of letting it gain so much B power. Same goes with the Shield core. It's just that I find that a lot more Bakugan can really make use of the plus 3 damage compared to the amount of Bakugan that make use of the plus 400 B power of the Shield core. And I think the reasoning for that is because for a long time, I mean, for the entirety of Bakugan Generation 2, the 10 damage minimum for a highest damage wins play has kind of just stayed at 10 damage, while B power has inflated each year. So like in first year, the best B powers were 1350 at the end and like 1000 at the beginning. And then in Armored Alliance, it was 1450, and then Geogan Rising 1550, and then 1650 is now the new one. So it's kind of been going by 100 B power every year. And honestly, if Bakugan Legends had a full year to really get into the swing of things, the minimum B power probably would have been 1750, while the damage rating probably would have stayed the same. However, though, these days with Bakugan that can do 20 damage, Bakugan that do 10 damage are probably not your go-to. But a lot of Bakugan still, they reach 10 damage because of that +3 boost that they get from the Green Fist. And now, last and certainly not least, is the 2 magic shields. And now I'm going to put this as the best core lineup to have, because you have 2 of the highest B power boosting cores in the game, and the basis to win a brawl is B power. So, yeah, B power is king in Bakugan, and while the Fire Fists are also extremely good cores to have, you kind of have to initiate the victor to change into the highest damage, while just the base game is whoever has the highest B power wins. So, yeah, this is the core lineup, but we'll do a little recap. At the S tier, we have the 2 magic shields because they're the highest B power boosting cores. Then we have 2 Fire Fists because they're the best damage boosting cores. And then we have Magic Shield and Fire Fist because it's a mix of the best B power and the best damage. And then at the top of A tier, we have 2 Helix cores, which give a really high boost in B power or damage, and then they give a reduction depending on which stat you go for. Then you have Helix and Fire Fist because, you have the Helix and then you have Fire Fist, which is the highest damage boosting core. Magic Shield and Helix, you have the same thing. And the great thing about these cores, is that if you use one, the other one can be given away, and a lot of times that's really good. Then in B tier, these are still good cores to have, but they are kind of brought down by their secondary core. You have Green Fist and Fire Fist at the top of it because there are actually quite a few Bakugan that make use of both of the cores at the same time. Then you have Magic Shield and Shield because Magic Shield is great and the Shield kind of just gets in the way. And from this point on, right after the B tier, right after Green Fist and Fire Fist, the secondary core kind of just gets in the way and no other Bakugan really wants to use it. So you got Magic Shield and Shield. You want to use the Magic Shield, the Shield goes to waste. Shield and Fire Fist, you want to use the Fire Fist, the Shield goes to waste. Magic Shield and Green Fist, you want to use the Magic Shield, and then the Green Fist kind of goes to waste. And then you have these 2 over here. The Helix is a good core to have, great core, but then the Shield core is going to waste, and plus on top of the Helix core's innate weakness, just the fact that because it gives reduction to stats, it's a lower on this part of the B tier. Then we have C tier, double Green Fist and double Shield core. Now, these cores are strictly dependent on how the Bakugan's effect is. Really, the only Bakugan that can actually make use of these cores make use of them because of their effects. Now, I put Green Fist over the 2 Shield cores because a lot more Bakugan can get up to 10 damage with the Green Fist than the amount of Bakugan that can get into competitive numbers with the B power for the 2 Shield cores. So it's really not the best, but not the worst. It's below average. Like, the Bakugan have to have effects that make these 2 cores good. And then in dead last is the Green Fist and the Shield core. Now, these 2 cores, once again, they're dependent on the Bakugan, and then you're splitting them because one gives you mid boost in B power, and the other gives you a mid boost in damage. And then if one if one Bakugan uses one of them, then no other Bakugan wants to use the other. So That's why they are in D tier. But yes, this has been Zionic. I do not. I've just been stumbling upon my words, have I? I might even just reset this. But actually, just real quick, I am going to put the double Helix core at the bottom of A tier because Fire Fist and Magic Shields are just better than Helix core. So obviously they'll go in the bottom because he has 2 Helix cores. But yeah, bottom A tier, but still a pretty good core lineup to have. So yes, that is the update. Yes, this has been Zionic Blader. If you like the tier list, give it a like or don't. I'm not the boss of you, but be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you get updated whenever I upload. Until next time, see ya.